Okay, welcome back, everybody. Today is Monday. I hope everyone had a good weekend. Hope everyone's entrepreneurial exercises and the entrepreneurial marketing plans are coming along well. Let's just take a minute here to look at where we are in the class. So we're in the week of the 24th through March 1st. So last week we wrapped up chapter 5. Just want to remind everybody that the entrepreneurial exercise for chapter 5 is going to be due Sunday, March 1st, 11:59 p.m. So we still have 6 days and 15 hours remaining on that. Um, and then obviously moving forward today, we're going to be starting chapter 6, developing new products and services. My plans are to continue on the way we've been doing in this class and cover the content on Monday and Wednesday, and then have a lab day on Friday to be working on the entrepreneurial marketing plan and the entrepreneurial exercises. So just to keep everyone in the loop of where we're at in the class and where we're moving forward. And if we take a look down here, we know that we have our midterm exam coming up next week and project updates. So next week you'll notice we're not going over any new content or anything. So we'll be doing our, like I said, our this week we'll be finishing chapter 6. That's the last content we're going to be seeing on the exam. It is covering chapters 1 through 6. We'll have a nice little review probably. I would say that Monday we'll do a review. Um, so I'll keep everyone in the loop with that as well. Just want to make sure everyone knows that we do have a midterm coming up next week, and then the week following that is spring break. So we're about midway through. So let's go ahead and just jump into chapter 6 now. So chapter 6 once again is developing new products and services. So let's just start this chapter out. What does a startup need to be successful? So obviously it needs a superior product or service and a better business model. Obviously we're going to have something superior than what our competitors doing, whether it be timing, better customer service, better quality product, lower price, whatever it might be. We gotta have some edge on our competition. And obviously we have to have a business model that's actually gonna produce us money and not cost us too much and keep us in the loop with the way the society and everything's moving. So obviously we know the business model is how do we make money with whatever good or service we're producing. Um, a superior product or service with a poor business model will not succeed. Obviously, if we have a great service or product, but we don't know how to reach our customers through advertising or through distributing it, or if we don't know how to price it, or don't, just whatever it might be. If we have a poor business model and a great service or product, obviously it's not going to work out because we don't know how to reach our customers or clients or whatever service it is. A poor product with a great business model will also not be successful. And I think that's obvious. If we know how to market stuff and we know the right place to be, we've done all of our homework, right? We really know what we're doing other than with our product, right? If it don't matter how good you are at marketing it, if it's a crappy service or a crappy product, people aren't going to be interested in it. So I think this makes sense. So we have to have a good product or service along with a good business model in order to be successful. So 3 ways to categorize new products. Continuous innovations. This can be little to no disruptive influence on existing consumption patterns. Involves minor product modifications. So a good way to think of this is like maybe a flavor of a pop or like a different flavor of Kool-Aid or something. Just very small modifications. Pretty much the same good or service. You're just tweaking it just a little bit. Simple product line extensions. Requires little education for the consumer. Must compete against existing alternatives. There's an existing ritual. You want the customers to embrace your solution to the market pain. So continuous innovations, this is going to be something like we see more often than not. It's going to be, like I said, just someone coming out with a new product, like a new flavor, or maybe just a different style of a tennis shoe or something, just something we see continuously happening. Obviously, people don't have to be real educated about it because they're already familiar with what the first product or service is. So just a little spin-off or just a different flavor or something, we don't need to be educated on that. Next way is going to be dynamically continuous innovations. And this is going to have some disruptive influence on existing consumption patterns. So It's going to change a little bit the way people are buying and consuming these goods and services that we're having to offer. It does not alter existing buying patterns completely, so people are still going to have the same characteristics and the same purchasing patterns as before, but it is going to change it a little bit. The book gives a good example here at the bottom. It says the toothbrush example. I'll jump down there and go over the example first, so as we go through those other bullets, it kind of makes sense. So the toothbrush example that the book uses is, we have these manual toothbrushes, right? So everyone's used to them. I think everyone was probably raised and brought up on a manual toothbrush, but I guess maybe 20 years ago, I don't know how many years ago it was, but they came out with an electronic toothbrush. So obviously that's going to change people's purchasing patterns. Probably maybe half the sector is going to start buying electronic ones. It's going to change the way you brush your teeth. You don't have to move it around as much. So, it's going to be a little disruptive and change the patterns on how people buy it. But it's a little more advanced than just a different shaped toothbrush or a different length or different toughness of a bristle or something. Now it's an actual electronic toothbrush. So it's a little different than just tweaking it a little bit. So that's what the dynamically continuous innovations are. It does not involve a major technological breakthrough, obviously, because it's just changing it a little bit, making it a little bit better. And also, we must compete with existing alternatives. Obviously, we know when we just barely spin off of a product or service, then obviously we're going to have to continue to compete, with whatever the competitors have out there as well, because we haven't just completely changed the game. So we're still in the same, in the same competitive environment. We're just trying to tweak something to make it a little different. On the third way to categorize new products is discontinuous innovations. And this is where the new products that involve major technological advances create a fundamental change in consumer consumption patterns. They can create new markets. Customers require education on the products and service, introduction of a new ritual, new consumption pattern with a completely unknown product. And this example here is the automobile or personal computer. So discontinuous innovations, obviously, the name kind of tells what it is. The new innovation is going to discontinue the old way of doing things. So in this way, we're starting that whole new, where we've created a whole new sector or a whole new segment. And kind of this the same way to think about this is the part where it's that blue sea compared to the red sea. Remember those other two things, other two ways, the continuous innovation and the one in the middle. It just slipped my mind. That's going to be in the Red Sea because you're still competing. The discontinuous one, you're going to be in the Blue Sea because obviously you've created a new market. There's really not much competition out there, if any. There's going to be competition because they're behind you trying to enter in, but you've created a market. So now you have an advantage. You have probably 2-3 years head start on everyone else. So try to take up that market share. Obviously, the automobile. We spoke earlier about Henry Ford when he was talking about if he asked his clients or customers what they'd want, they would have said a faster horse, because they weren't aware of the automobile. But obviously what they really wanted was the car, the vehicle. So that obviously changed how people use transportation. They're not going to be riding around on a horse as much. If they can afford it, they're going to get a vehicle. Personal computer, I think we've all experienced that. Obviously, we weren't around in the horse and buggy days, and didn't get to see what it was like when the first vehicle came out. But for the first personal computer, we can probably look back. I know myself. I know I can look back and remember when the personal computer came out, as opposed to just having to go somewhere and use like a massive computer. But that changed the way we lived, the way we shop, the way we do business, just everything. So that's what discontinuous innovations are. So pretty much they're just going to be just different tiers. The first one, just simple, like just changing a flavor for the continuous innovation, just changing a flavor or maybe just the size or the weight of something simple like that. The dynamically continuous one, this is kind of in between. It's not just as simple as a flavor or a dimension or something. You've actually taken it to a next step, like the toothbrush example, from manual to electronic. So just something of that sort. And then obviously the discontinuous innovations is something brand new, like the automobile or personal computer. Everyone good on the different ways, the different categories? I think it's pretty straightforward and makes sense. So next, let's talk about the types of new products. Most new ventures are built around products that are either continuous innovations or dynamically continuous innovations. So 80% of products are simple continuous innovations, and 20% of the new products are going to be dynamically continuous innovations. So it's less than 1% of products are discontinuous innovations. And I think that makes sense too. I mean, obviously, we don't have, someone creating Facebook every day or, whatever, all these other, a vehicle or a computer or, a smartphone or whatever it might be. Obviously these only come around every so often. It takes quite an amount of time for people to actually come up with something that's going to just change the game. So it makes sense why that's going to be less than 1% of the overall new products coming out. 80% of the products are simple continuous innovations. I think that makes sense. I mean, there's so many products and services out there, it's kind of hard to come up with something new. So remember what we were talking about in the last chapter? Even if you don't have a product or service that is really different, there's not any real differences. There could be perceived differences. So obviously, I think a lot of the people are just trying to make customers perceive that there's an actual difference. So it makes sense why the 80% is going to be made up of the simply continuous innovations. It's more simple to come up with. People that are trying to start new products don't have as much money to be able to start these things that are just groundbreaking and just changing the game. So I think the scale of the percentage of the way these types of innovations fall into play is actually right on, and it makes sense with everything we've been going over. That makes sense with the different breakdowns of the percentage of innovations. So next is the types of new services. Creating, delivering a new service is much more difficult than creating a new product. New services differ from new products in a variety of ways. The actual providers are part of the customer experience. So obviously, if we have a good or like a product, right, like a tangible product, then the only thing we're really going to need the actual providers for the customer experience is just if we need someone to drive a truck to deliver a product, right, or if we actually make the sale or servicing afterwards, right. So the person, the human being, is not really that involved with that process as much, right. It's just they're involved in creating it and then just getting the reach to the customer, whether it be communicating or marketing or getting it to them. But obviously with the service, then you're going to have people involved with it. That's what you're selling as a service. So therefore, it's obviously going to be much more difficult because now you got to factor in the quality of the people that you have being on these service calls, going to put service in. You have to do background checks, do educational, and just see where these people are at. So that's going to be obviously much more difficult. Anytime you have to deal with an individual other than just a tangible item, obviously it's going to be more difficult because then you have a whole other personality, and obviously people have issues in their life, and stuff comes up. So things are going to happen. People aren't always going to be at work. So obviously, anytime you have a human being involved, it's going to be more difficult to control. Services require physical presence of the customer, requires local decentralized production of the service. So if we're installing, like, I don't know, if say we're building decks or patios, obviously we have to be able to go to where that location is in order to build that. And obviously we're going to have a crew to be able to do that service, So obviously the service requires the physical presence of the customer. Depending on the service, they might be there, they might not. Obviously, if we're building something for them, they don't necessarily have to be there. Obviously, if we're providing dental service, they're going to have to be there. We can't work on their mouth if they're not even in the room, So stuff of that sort. New services do not have tangible product to carry a brand name. So if we have a tangible product, we can put our little trademark or symbol on it, like Nike's, that's got that little swoop and it says Nike on it, So that product carries the brand name. So people are seeing that brand name like marketing or advertisement, right? So people become familiar with your product through that brand name. But obviously new services don't carry the brand name. Obviously, you can have a little shirt with your name and whatever company you work for, but it's a little different than actually having a product that stays with them, Because once they come and do their service, then you don't know if Lowe's did it or if 84 Lumber or whoever it might be unless they ask. It's not like they're going to come in and spray paint a huge Lowe's sign on the side of your porch after they're done with it, so they leave their trademark so you know who did it. Um, so just good to remember that new services are more difficult to create than a new product, and I think it makes sense why is because there's a lot more variables entering in into the overall scope of what's going on other than just creating a product. So some categories of new services. Major service innovations are entirely new concepts and create new markets. The good example of that is FedEx overnight service or CNN 24-hour news. I know we've went over that. Um, so obviously that totally changed the game in shipping services and the way that the news is being presented to us. Major process innovations consist of new ways to deliver existing services so that the customer receives new value. The example here is online degrees, so you can complete it usually quicker and cheaper, and you also never have to leave your house a lot of times. Some of them have like a residency requirement. You have to make a couple trips there throughout the program. Others, you don't have to go at all. So obviously, that's totally changed the way and education's being delivered to society or to students. Um, it's shaken up normal brick and mortar institutions because obviously they have to charge more because they have more overhead. They are having all this other stuff that these online platforms don't have. A lot of them are hybrid platforms. They have the online and the brick and mortar, but I think we can see how these online degrees are changing the educational realm that we're experiencing. So service line extensions are additions to existing lines of service. A good example is how the author said earlier in the book about one of the students had an insurance agency, and they added the ability to insure your pet. So they added another line of insurance for animals. Supplementary service innovation takes the form of adding new elements to core service or improving existing supplementary services that accompany the core service. The book gives an example here of a valet parking service being added to a hospital. So obviously the hospital service has already been there. They got the doctors and the nurses, nurse practitioners, or whatever it might be. But maybe they didn't have people parking the vehicles out front. I know a lot of elderly people usually go to the hospital. Obviously they tend to have to go to the doctors more often than younger people, and maybe they don't want to park so far away, or they're just a little disabled. So the valet was a good opportunity, and someone capitalized on that. So they contracted with the hospital, and then they valet the company cars or the customer vehicles or whatever it might be. Basic service improvements make modest changes to an existing service. So, an example, fast food companies might just want to be faster than other fast food companies. I know Chick-fil-A. I know most people like Chick-fil-A. Have ate there. They've got the one in Princeton over there, right off of 77, and with it being right off 77, between that traffic and the local traffic, it gets pretty busy there. They've already got the two drive-through lines. I know we've seen that evolve over the years, how it used to just be one line, then they started doing the double lines. Well, now Chick-fil-A actually puts people outside when the weather's pretty decent and has them outside, writing orders down, trying to speed it up. So they're trying to just pump out more customers, more food, obviously, so they make more money. So basic service improvements, that's just a way of being just a basic service improvement. Maybe we might make a battery life a little longer, on a cell phone or something like that. So just something basic. Most new service-based ventures are focused on creating small improvements. Discontinuous innovation in the service sector. A good example of that is Google. So we know that was definitely a discontinuous innovation because we know Google is just a powerhouse now. I mean, they own all kinds of stuff. It totally changed how we search for stuff. I mean, it totally changed the service sector. So there's an example of the discontinuous innovation. Facebook can be another one. I mean, that totally changed it. I mean, people are marketing on there. I mean, people are using business pages, just corporate pages. I mean, everyone's involved on Facebook. It's all eyes are on that platform. let's see here. So everyone pretty good on ways of adding a new service. It could be a whole new one, just add, minor changes, adding a new service to an existing service like the valet, just stuff of that sort. I think everyone should understand. It's not too difficult of a concept. Everyone's good on it. Characteristics of successful new products and services. Basic considerations. Does the product or service add significant value for the customer? Obviously, the more value that we can add for the customer, the more chances, the more likely are we to be successful. Is the product or service well differentiated? Obviously, it needs to be differentiated because we want to stand out. I mean, that's the whole point of doing it. Does the customer have a need for the product or service? And does customer feedback confirm there's a demand for the product or service? Obviously, there has to be a need for the product or service. If people do not desire or want or need your product or service, then chances are they're not going to buy it. I mean, they're not just going to go and throw their money away just for something that they have no desire to have. Does customer feedback confirm there's a demand for the product or service? So obviously, if there's no demand, then you might as well just stop, because the whole point is to get people to buy your good or service, get recurring revenue, and to expand into new markets and to gain market shares. So obviously there needs to be a demand. So further consideration, superior advantage. So once again, we know that could come in the form of price, just service, whatever it might be, quality. So whatever your superior advantage is. Compatibility. So is it compatible with what your knowledge is? Is it compatible with what your desires are? Is the good or service you're offering not from the provider standpoint, from the consumer standpoint? Is it compatible with what they need it for? If it's an athlete, the chances are they're not going to be as concerned with buying fast food and stuff as they are buying supplements and buying sporting apparel. So is it compatible with what market you're trying to reach? Simplicity. A lot of times products that are really difficult to use, that need like really detailed instructions, people kind of they kind of get scared away from them. They don't want something that they're going to have to sit down and have to watch an hour-long video or a tutorial on, like, show me how to do something. So simplicity is a pretty good thing. We want most people to be able to just look at it, figure it out, or just know how to use it with basic instructions. So don't want to make it too difficult. Observability. Are we going to be able to observe what's going on in the market? Are we going to be able to observe the success we're having? Are we going to be able to observe what other competitors are doing in the market? So just whatever market we enter into, we need to be able to observe both what the consumer wants and be able to observe what the competitors are doing. Trial ability. A lot of people want to be able to buy stuff and not be totally like sold on it. I know, like Sam's, if you shop at Sam's, they'll have like samples, like usually on the weekends at like high shopping times when there's a lot of people in there trying to get you to sample it for free, hoping that you'll go buy the product. So that's a good example there. Maybe a lot of these little commercials we see on TV will say, if you like it, if you're unsatisfied, then this trial's for free. You can send it back within 30 days and full money back. So it's just stuff like that. People like to be able to try, test the waters before buying the good or service. Low perceived risk. So this gets into dealing with warranties. So when customers buy things, obviously if it's got a decent price tag on it, like a computer or a television or a vehicle, then they're going to be concerned with what the risk is on taking on that high cost item. So they want to know if something would happen, if something would go wrong, and what type of warranty, or like how are you going to help me out in this situation. So low perceived risk, and then intellectual property protection. We all know what intellectual property is. It's things that we need to get patents on and stuff of that sort, copyrights. So obviously we're going to want to protect all of our intellectual property to keep competitors from stealing our ideas and our processes or whatever it is that we feel that's going to give us a superior advantage. So those are some other considerations that we need to consider for having a successful new product or service. And I think think that all makes sense. I think everybody in here's feels some type of way about like these bullets we just went over. Everyone wants to have a warranty if they buy something expensive. Everyone's going to want to try something, have the ability to try it, be able to observe it and see if it's something that they would be familiar, happy with compared to something else. So I think all these kind of make sense here. So another important characteristics is for the product or service to be a purple cow. And what this means, I mean, the book. This is the first time I've heard of that too. When I was prepping for this, pretty much what it means is like your product really stands out. It has an entrepreneurial spotlight in the chapter, and it talks about how this entrepreneur says you need to have a purple cow. If you see a bunch of black and white cows, all the time, but sometimes or brown, whatever they might be, but you don't see purple cows. So pretty much, if you see a purple cow, chances are you're going to look at that purple cow. It's going to be, oh man, look at this purple cow. So pretty much, it means that the product is something that's phenomenal, counterintuitive, exciting, and flat out unbelievable. So pretty much just differentiated your product. So that's all it is really. You just really want to make sure your product stands out. Is pretty much what the purple cow is. I mean, there's really no need to keep digging into that. That's just all it is the characteristic of a purple cow is obviously what it says. I mean, you don't really hear of a purple cow, so you want your product to be something like, oh man, I just got to have this. What's this product or service about? So more than 90% of new products introduced in the U.S. do not succeed in the long run. That's a pretty high percentage of products and services not succeeding. I think a lot of that probably comes down to just the fact that that just shows how hard it really is to be successful and run a business. Maybe it's successful in the short run because maybe they were on a fad, and that fad died out really quick, or maybe they just underpriced their products, and at first it was good, but as time went on and their AR built up and their inventory had to keep being replenished, and their AR was building, they just ran out of capital and just couldn't obtain a loan, so it just died down. For whatever the reason it might be, just know that 9 times out of 10, most services and goods are going to fail in the long run. Preventing failure is simple. Find out what the customers want and need. Produce what they want and need, and do not produce what they do not want and need. Sounds pretty simple, right? Right, but now go apply that. Stuff always sounds simple. So obviously that's what you want to do. I mean, it is simple. I think what they're really trying to say here is just keep it simple. Don't try to do too much. Like, don't chase too many people. Don't try to service them all. Don't try to create something that you don't even know if they're going to like or not. Just truly find out what they want and they need, make it, and just move on. Just keep it simple. But obviously, it's a lot harder to implement this than just to say it. I mean, it's hard to find out what the wants and needs are of a customer. You could go years and try to figure out what the wants and needs are. Same thing, then trying to produce something that solves that problem could take another couple of years. So yeah, it sounds really simple, but in all reality, it's not. If it was, there'd be a higher success rate than 90% for new products and services. Okay, the new product service process, 6 stages. Idea generation, obviously where we're brainstorming and thinking about what idea we're going to come up with. Screening and evaluation, that's where we're going to screen the ideas that are going to be just, okay, there's no way this is going to work. Okay, this one sounds viable. Let's think about this. Maybe somewhere in the gray area. Business analysis. After we've done the screening and evaluation, then obviously we've decided which products we want to move forward with. So the business analysis, then we need to come up with how much it's going to cost us, what we're going to price it at, and what type of a business model we're going to use to be able to produce that good or service. Development, then we're going to go into maybe picking up what our suppliers are going to be, who our distributors are going to be, depending on what we do. Just pretty much how we're going to go about developing our product in this stage. Market testing, maybe we've got like a prototype built now, and say we're trying to just maybe bring a new set of shoes or something to market. So maybe we'll partner with Foot Locker. Maybe we'll go up to the mall one day and take our products and just put it on a stand in there, and just have customers see how customers interact with our product, and ask them what they would do different, or what if they're happy with it, stuff of that sort. So market testing, it's important because you get a real feel for how people are going to respond to your good or service. And it also allows you to make changes still, because at this point you can still tweak your good or service to whatever you found out during that market testing. Because you might come to find out that, maybe they want high tops instead of low tops. Maybe, you've got just too many bright colors. They want a more basic, just a black or white or gray or something like that. So then for market testing, obviously, we go ahead and just do our last little tweaks to our product, if any, and then we launch it. And when we launch it, most times for new startups, we're going to do it just locally, maybe just one store or a couple stores, or do it within a district or a region to keep price down. Because once again, we don't want to spread ourselves too thin. So we want to be able to really service and provide a really good service to the people that we're trying to grow a product with, right? And then worry about growing from there. So that's the 6-stage process. So we'll get a little bit more into each of these things. Idea generation, that's the most difficult of the 6-stage process. I think that makes sense, because obviously coming up with an idea is going to be the hardest part. Once you have something you think is going to be set in stone and something that you can just take off and run with, then obviously it should be downhill from there. Not saying it's going to be just easy once you figure out what your good or service is going to be, but it should be a little more simple once you've pinpointed, like, okay, I think this is going to be really something that there's going to be a demand for. Then you want to develop a pool of ideas and concepts. The best ideas are based off of rich information. So you want to immerse yourself in the market with the secondary and primary data. Remember, what's the difference between secondary and primary data?
Secondary is already out there. Primary data is information you go create or make yourself.
Right. Yep. Secondary data is already out there in those databases, like those links that we're going to use for our marketing plan. And then obviously the primary data is where you go out and do those focus groups and interviews and stuff like that. So we're actually going into the field and pulling it. Use environmental scanning. Pattern recognition can emerge. So in environmental scanning, so you're going through your environment, whatever environment it is that you're scanning, and you're asking these people what it is that they would desire, or what things that they're unhappy with, stuff of that sort. And as you do that, you might start to see patterns, like people are saying the same thing, or some people might say different things, but you see they're even connected somehow. So you can start to see patterns, and maybe that can lead you in a direction to kind of come up with a new good or service that you want to produce. One of the best sources for new ideas come from potential customers. We want to observe and talk to the customers, obtain the VOC, which is the voice of the consumer. Focus on the lead users, and collaborate or co-participate with the lead users. Okay, so obviously we want to be in touch with and in contact with the customer, right? Because in the end, they're the ones that's ultimately going to buy our good or service. So we want to know what their thoughts are and how their perception is on what's out there and what could be out there. So obviously that's why we want to observe and talk to the customers and obtain the voice of the consumer. And why do we want to focus on lead users? Do you recall what a lead user was from I think chapter 4?
Was that like the people who try it first?
The cool kids in school, right? The ones that try it first, and they're usually the ones that people follow. They're the trendsetters and the cool kids. So yeah, those are what the lead users are. So that's why we want to focus on those, because usually those are the ones that are the trendsetters and kind of shift society to do other goods or other services. So we want to focus on them. And a lot of times, remember, we said that we might make a lead user like a celebrity or a sports figure, someone that's already got a name for themselves and that people already know of. I mean, we can see like Sprite and all them did it with Kobe Bryant, and all these other people who are athletes had all these big deals. It's because they're endorsing their product to them because they know they're in the spotlight already. So the chances are their reach through that figure is going to be a lot better than it would have been without using that figure. So that's a good example of a lead user there. Um, Another source for good idea generation is to look at customer complaints. Customer frustrations may lead to a viable venture. Unfilled dissatisfaction in the customer base. And just remember, if customers are happy with the current products or services, then they have no need for your products or service. Um, an example here that the book gives is Panera Bread. There's a need for healthier fast food services because the only ones out there was like McDonald's and Burger King and Long John Silver's, just all loaded with grease and just a bunch of crap, pretty much. I mean, it's good, but it's just terrible for you. So someone found that there was customers that were on the go and were pressed for time, that they wanted, they still liked the idea of fast food, but they just wanted a healthier alternative. So obviously they came up with Panera Bread, and I think we've seen a few spin-offs now after Panera has had some success. Um, we'll do this last slide on idea generation, and then we'll be able to wrap up the other ones on Wednesday. Okay, so the last thing with idea generation here, other sources include research and development, talk to suppliers and distributors, or brainstorm. Um, so obviously research and development, that's going to be something we should be doing in the beginning stage anyways, as far as I'm concerned, because if we're developing a new product, we should be doing some research and development. So I think that's just kind of redundant by having that listed here. We already said that we could talk to suppliers and distributors for other competitors and see if they'll give us some insight on what they do well or what they don't do well, stuff of that sort. Sometimes they'll talk to us, sometimes they won't. It just depends on how good of a relationship they have with the other supplier or the other competitor. And brainstorm, obviously, that's something we should already be taking into account when trying to come up with the product or service. Just idea generation, I think everyone has an idea of what that means. Straightforward, just come up with your ideas. So we didn't get quite as far as I wanted to today, but I think we'll still be able to wrap it up on Wednesday so we can have our lab day. So just remember, everybody, continue working on with your entrepreneurial marketing plan. You all should be getting pretty close to about 40% of the way, 35-40% of the way through it by now. My hopes is that you're moving along with us as we move through the content. So just please continue to work on that, and also remember your entrepreneurial exercise that's due this week as well. So that's it for today. We're about halfway through Chapter 6. We'll wrap up Chapter 6 on Wednesday and then have our lab on Friday. So everyone have a nice day, and I will see you on Wednesday.